What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It's time for a review of the 5th studio album by Katy Perry, a pop singer-songwriter who burst onto the scene as originally a Christian artist and then obviously transformed with her mainstream debut in 2008, One of the Boys. A pretty decent album, honestly. It was like late in high school for me. I thought it was enjoyable. I liked some of the singles. I ended up listening to the album and I thought that she was a pretty talented singer. Even though some of the songs were cheesy, they held their own and have stood the test of time as not being just forgettable pop songs. And she's had some undeniably big hits, although a lot of them I just do not find favor with. A lot of the Teenage Dream record was just a drag for me, and some of those singles just beat you over the head with monotony and you could not escape them. Then with her comeback Prism, she had Dark Horse and obviously Roar that still get played to death, and you can't really judge a song for that, but the more you hear something, I guess the more the little annoyances with the song, they grow on you and become bigger annoyances. And with this new record, she took some time off. She changed herself up, and during the process of promoting this album, shaved her head and declared a new era, and one for socially conscious pop music, something that was self-aware and something that maybe had a message to it. And do we get that with this record? Really beyond the lead single, which definitely seemed to stem from some sort of creative place? No! Most of this album is just, where does that fall in line exactly? I get that a lot of the lyrics here can be self-empowering. That's nothing new for Katy Perry, which does not mark a new era in my mind, because just look at Roar, her probably biggest song to date, up there with the biggest at least, and that's an empowerment anthem right there. And then it seems like on this record, it's like the label just said, hey, this is going to be the year that you make your comeback. 2017, okay, you've been stalling for too long. 2013 is the last time you dropped a record, so we're going to need to speed up this process. Oh, you don't have enough songs? That's okay. Just get 2 or 3 good ideas and then just fill up the rest of the album with other stuff. And apparently she had 40 songs for this record. And instead of cutting it down to like 10 or 12 or 13, we get 15 songs on the standard edition of this record, clocking in at almost 58 minutes, and that is almost insufferable for a Katy Perry album. I mean, I thought her last one was a bit lengthy, and that was 48 minutes on Prism. But here, it is just completely unnecessary, and so much of this content is just fluff. Bon appetit? No, there's nothing on the palette here. There's a plethora of different producers on here. Obviously, you would expect the Max Martin Shellback combos, or some of the Max Martin solo, and a few other producers thrown in the mix. You know her regular collaborators, and Sia came through, co-wrote a couple of the tracks like Chained to the Rhythm and Hey Hey Hey, cool. And then, of course, it got my interest whenever she starts saying things like, oh, I got this little Canadian indie dance duo, Purity Ring, brought them in to produce 3 tracks, and I'm like, okay, she's talking about making some socially conscious stuff, some important pop music and that sort of thing. What's going on here? And not to say that those tracks fall flat, but I do feel like they just fell a bit flat of expectations, especially with the lyrical content, really all throughout this record, but we'll talk more about that soon. Hot Chip produced the final track, Into Me You See. Another one that definitely has a few things going for it, but at the same time, it gets weighed down by other things, and even my positive things I feel like I have to say here also have some counterpoints to that. Let's start by talking about Chained to the Rhythm. That's the lead single here, and it's a song that I gave a pretty positive review to. I think I gave it either a 3 or a 3.5 out of 5 whenever I did a track review, and it's one of those things I can forgive some of the grievances I have with it just because it's super catchy. The lyrics are kind of dumb in places. I don't care if it's sarcasm or if it's trying to pinpoint something with how we act in society. The stumbling around like a wasted zombie line is garbage in my mind. I cannot get past it. I cannot forgive it, and I cannot let it go. Other than that, this song's actually pretty catchy. I like the kind of moody dance hall swing that it has to it, kind of a tropical flavor, and then Skip Marley comes in and actually adds something to the track, and then I'm like, this is a cool collaboration. If these are the steps that she wants to take with her music, wants to push for this direction, I'm on board. Swish Swish, the song that everyone's buzzing about because it's the Taylor Swift diss. It's the rebuttal to Bad Blood, a song that I did not like. Bad Blood, that is. I feel like it's the weakest song on Taylor's 1989, second, and I kind of love the super salty move that Taylor did by putting her music back on Spotify the night that Katy Perry released her new album, Witness. That's just, it's not a coincidence. That has to just be like a stab to the back. Swish Swish features Nicki Minaj. It's the answer back to that whole diss or whatever it was, whatever's going on, she answered back. And I have to say, Swish Swish is one of the best songs here. Nicki Minaj almost steals the show, and I don't really care for Nicki Minaj. But I've liked her on a couple of guest features that I've seen her on this year. Obviously, we had the DNCE verse where she comes in on Kissing Strangers. I thought that was particularly strong. It stood out to me and almost stole the show, and she almost does the same thing once again. I mean, Katy holds her own, and I'm not gonna knock Katy's talent in terms of like vocal performance and everything like that. It's just that some of her lines, especially like as a diss, they don't come across like that strong, and they're kind of cheesy, and it definitely seems like white girls arguing. Before I talk about the Purity Ring produced tracks, I have to quickly praise Roulette. I don't think it's the smartest song. It's definitely not socially conscious or self-aware pop. I think that Katy sells that angle a little bit too hard whenever talking about this record, but is it a good pop song? I'd be lying if I said no. This one's a lot of fun. I like that Max Martin and Perry came through on this one and just made a really cool beat. Even though it does get a bit repetitive, it drags on. Even though it's just over 3 minutes long, it still feels a bit tedious towards the end because you're hearing bum 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 bum, and it just kind of goes over and over again. And I get that loops are a big thing that make a lot of songs, but here, just because it's so loud in the mix, I'm not complaining because I think it's very, very hooky. Maybe it's just that it gets stuck in my head too frequently and I can't get it out. 3 songs were produced by the Canadian duo Purity Ring, and those are Mind Maze, Miss You More, and Bigger Than Me. 3 songs that stand out, but honestly, I was a little bit let down by just because Katy Perry comes through with some weak vocals in places. I don't feel like they necessarily fit her. The whole auto-tune thing on Mind Maze, even though that one has grown on me immensely. I just feel like her lyrics didn't match up with the killer production, because that is something that for this record, a lot of it is very mundane, but the tracks that bang, bang hard, they are ready to play in the club, in the car, for your party, whatever the setting might be. And I would say that maybe about half stand out in the production. She comes through on Mind Maze with this half kind of auto-tuned in places at least kind of performance on this track, and it definitely does have a certain appeal to it. I like the production here, the way that it's kind of dreary, does feel like kind of a Purity Ring type track, as you would expect. They explore a little bit more their territory on the next 2 that they produced. Miss You More is one where she's basically saying, you know, I missed you, obviously, more than I ever actually loved you. Maybe she was in a long distance relationship, you know, being on the road a lot as an artist. Maybe she was like, oh, I miss the idea of this person. And it was okay, but it gets so formulaic with the way that she packages things. And it's like the most obvious presentation or setup ever. If Katy Perry was the director, she would reveal the twist every single time, like the first 10 minutes of the movie. Okay, wipe that slate clean. Let's get back to what I was talking about, the album's problems, because it is definitely plagued with a lot of those. And a lot of those come in Katy Perry herself. It just feels like some of the introspection, the soul searching, the new era seeking Perry in her really just let her down, because this album feels just boring. It feels filler. It feels leftover. It feels like she just grabbed up some scraps and then had a bunch of songwriters and producers just assemble all of the pieces. It just seems like she's trying so hard, like, not to offend anybody, that this album is offensive in a way. That's not gonna factor into my rating though. Let's judge the music for what it is. It's music, so let's look at it as a pop album. Is it good? Does it catch your eye? Does it catch your ear? Does it have some earwormy lyrics or something to offer us? Well, let's first look at the Migos assisted Bon Appetit. You might have heard my little brief mention of this in a track roundup over on Beyond ARTV, but I am not a fan of this disaster. The way that the lyrics present themselves here, you're gonna call yourself socially conscious or something like that. I'm all that you want, boy. You know, basically come and eat me up. All these other little clever euphemisms for like basically saying like, I'm on the menu, come get me, come fuck me, or something like that. I don't know what the message of the song is, but it is not a good one. The Migos are there, obviously. It's a pop song in 2017. You know it was gonna be somewhere on here. Either that or just Quavo solo by himself. Save His Draft has to be one of the biggest first world problems type songs I have ever heard. You're sitting here contemplating sending this text or sending this tweet or this DM or whatever it is, and I'm gonna type it out. I'm gonna type it out. You know what? I'm just gonna let this sleeping dog lie, as she says in the song. I'm not gonna send it. I'm gonna be the bigger person. Pendulum actually has some kind of interesting production, but Perry manages to scrap that, throw it down the drain, because she has one of the most predictable vocal performances and lyrical cliches that she could ever come through with, basically talking about the ups and downs of life. And at this point in the record, you're 14 songs in. How much are you really gonna need to hear from Katy Perry at this point? You've sat through the likes of, obviously, Tsunami, which is produced by Mike Will Made It. You do the math. I mean, he's had a couple of moments of redemption, but this is boring on the production level. It is flatlining, and then Katy Perry comes in and just, I don't know what she did on this track. The little lyrical things that she was doing here, trying to make this one stand out, making little references to other things that are wave related or being wet and stuff like that. It was facepalm worthy. You've also suffered through Bon Appetit featuring Migos, Power, which is a boring thing where she talks about how, you know, like, I love you, mom, but I gotta be better than you. I gotta step it up more than you. I gotta move on. And I get it. We're in a different generation now, and we handle ourselves differently and hopefully more politely and that sort of thing in some regards. But the way that she goes about it here is just all wrong, and the chorus is just boring as all get out. And right before that, that was track 6. Track 5, if you thought that one was boring, listen to Deja Vu. Her little vocal thing that she's doing there in the chorus, where she's just kind of up and down, she just seems so disinterested in it. How are you ever going to get invested in it as a listener if she can't even be bothered to work up the steam to get into this with some enigma and some energy? You can't. That's the answer. What I'm getting at is that this point in the album, whenever you get to Pendulum, you've already sat through all of this boring or else half-ass shit. You don't want to care about this whatsoever, especially if she's not really giving you something you can sink your teeth into. Then we get to the hot chip produced final song on the album, Into Me You See. There's actually some cool things. It feels like it's building some tension. It's working towards something, and you see a little bit of a chord progression or else a pitch change or something like that in the song. It makes a nice maneuver, and then it goes into the chorus, and it just seems like it's sailing in very familiar waters. Just a little bit of ballad territory there, and it seems like she's talking about something that maybe is very important to her, but it doesn't come across as passionate as she wants it to, and therefore it feels just kind of dreadful as you listen to it, especially as I listened through for my 5th or 6th time. Kind of a forgettable pop album from Katy Perry, which, as I've said before, as one of my viewers tweeted to me earlier, the worst thing you can do with a pop record is be forgettable. Thanks for watching. It's a 2.5 out of 5 for me, and that's being generous. I initially said 2. Thanks for watching the review, guys. Be sure to leave a like on it, and keep in mind, it is all just my opinion. Let me know about yours in the comment section down below. Thank you to all of my new Patreon supporters. If you're able to help out, it is that annotation over there in the corner. You can see another Katy Perry review here, or a recent album review by clicking right here. Social media is in the description, and I'll see you very soon right here on ARTV.